Hello, my name is Voya and welcome to My Deep Guide. And yes, it's finally here. Time to do the in-depth review of the remarkable Paper Pro, the color 11.8-inch device from Remarkable. I wanted to spend a decent amount of time to properly test this device in my day-to-day scenario. So what I did was actually spend 3 weeks using no other device as far as my handwriting and reading and e-inking note-taking needs other than the Remarkable Paper Pro, because I wanted to properly test it out and bring you a good hands-on review experience and share what the actual results and actual life with using this device is like. So this is not going to be a traditional type of a review. I'm going to be more focusing on things that are specifically important and specifically different with this device in mind, because these are the aspects that I believe that are going to be most important for potential users and buyers, because this is not a cheap device. So this is an investment and you gotta, make an informed decision about it. Back in September 2017, Remarkable came on the radar of the world with their brand new tablet, which was called the Remarkable One Paper Tablet, or back then it was called Remarkable Paper Tablet. This was something that really intrigued my interest, and it was something that I really wanted to try out. Back then, My Deep Guide did not exist, and this is that very first unit that I purchased, and this was one of the first 100 Remarkable ones delivered back in September 2017, when I personally went to their old headquarters, which were being established back then, and picked it up. So when I got it, I saw that there was no information online regarding this kind of thing, and I started making videos. Response was great, and here we are today. So 2017, we saw the Remarkable One. Then we fast forward to 2020, again September, and we got the Remarkable 2, which actually really shifted Remarkable onto the forefront as one of the leading e-ink developers or e-ink based device developers in the world. And Remarkable 2 has garnered a huge following, and even today you see brand new devices coming out 4 years after Remarkable 2 came out, copying, mimicking, and trying to emulate the style because of the popularity of the Remarkable 2. Now, by no means is the Remarkable 2 the first one who introduced all of these things, but what it actually did manage is to establish that this type of design is, by a majority of people, recognized as the Remarkable 2 kind of design. And now, September 2024, we have the Remarkable Paper Pro. And this is, again, a very, very nice design. But like we've seen before, there was a significant departure from Remarkable 1 to Remarkable 2. And similarly, now we see significant departure and evolution of design from Remarkable 2 to the Remarkable Paper Pro. So, in short, what is Remarkable Paper Pro? Well, Remarkable Paper Pro is an 11.8-inch true color e-ink device that is primarily focused on writing and annotating documents. This is not an Android powered tablet. This doesn't have a browser. This doesn't have apps or anything like that. Nope. And this is not really that good for EPUB reading. Mainly it's for documents reading, markup of documents, and writing your notebooks and writing your thoughts and keeping yourself organized that way. Additionally, what it also lends itself really, really well for is for hyperlinked PDF organizers and things like that, such as the ones that you can find on mydeepguide.com/shop, MDO and MMP. More information you can find in the description below in the playlists that are linked there. But the combination of what this device brings to the table really lends itself best for those 3 operations: documents reading and markup, notebooks writing, and organizer writing and journaling. The design and build quality of the Remarkable Paper Pro follows the excellent design and much more improved build quality from the before mentioned Remarkable 2. So we now have a full-on metal bucket design. So this is a single piece of milled aluminum alloy type of body, and this is just a one back piece, and what fits on the front is actually everything goes in as electronics and the front panel along with the screen. This is no longer the thinnest tablet in the world, but honestly at 5.1 millimeters it's not something that you would characterize, or I at least would not characterize it as a thick or a bulky device. Obviously this is a much larger screen than what we've had before, so 11.8 inches, which is exactly halfway between two standards that we've had so far, 10.3 inch and the 13.3 inches. And I find that this standard is something that I really like about the Remarkable Paper Pro, because it's like a Goldilocks kind of a thing. 10.3 can feel too small in certain situations for the type of work that I would typically do on a device like this, and 13.3, while the real estate is absolutely phenomenal, can sometimes be a little bit too big and bulky. And my experience now after 3 weeks of exclusively using Remarkable Paper Pro for all of my tasks for anything e-ink related that I normally use is basically I love the 11.8 inch format. I think that this is a really nice change. The other thing that they've also changed is something that they're not really advertising and that you can't really see, but it's something that they've mentioned to me when I went to their headquarters and had a preview of the device, which is that there's no glues or anything that's used inside of the device. It's all mechanical fitting, and this is a much more intelligent design that is supposed to make the device much more easier to repair by the authorized repair centers or the Remarkable themselves. Now granted, this is still not user repairable, but it does actually lend itself to a much better longevity. And I think that they've probably had quite a few painful experiences with RMAs and failures of the Remarkable 2. So I think that it's a good thing to actually see that the company is learning, growing, and not just following trends, but actually trying to do something that they think is right. So the build quality is excellent. Over 3 weeks now that I've used it every single day, quite a bit, I haven't had a single issue hardware related. The design itself is at first glance minimal, but it's very elegant and very stylish. Everything that you touch, everything that you see, everything that you feel, everything that you interact with the device is of perfect quality and really pleasant, and it feels like a high-class device, which it needs to because of the price, which is really high. Screen flush with the surface, bezel that is equal on the left and right and top, but is wider on the bottom, and is trying to match the greenish grayish type of color of the color canvas display panel that they are using. On the sides we have these really beautifully milled and manufactured ridges, which are not there just for show, but actually when you're holding and interacting with the device, they not only provide for a nice grip and improved and better grip, but it actually is something that simply feels good. On the back we have the traditional Remarkable simplistic design, just the logo, 4 anti-skid pads, 5-pin pogo here, and that's pretty much it. On the side we have an indication of where the magnet is, and this is one of the most powerful magnets that I've ever seen on any of the e-ink devices, because despite this being a heavier device and much larger, you have absolutely no problems lifting carefully the entire device via the magnet alone. So it holds the pen really well. On the other side there is nothing. On the top there is the power button, no fingerprint reader or anything like that. The device can only be secured via a PIN code. And on the bottom we do have a USB-C port for data communication and charging. Design-wise, I think that this is definitely a missed opportunity, and this is something that makes it old school. For the convenience sake, really the USB-C port should have been on the top, especially on a larger device like this, because there are so many benefits of having the USB-C port on the top, but it's not. We have the old school bottom orientation. Design-wise, I like pretty much everything, and I think that it's very, very adequate for a Pro-like device. And for writing and for reading, I really don't mind the wider edge here. But if you were to primarily use the device with a Type Folio, for example, which in essence only works in the landscape format, well, then this wider edge is a bit of a distraction and it doesn't feel as smooth, simply because you do not have a fully symmetrical landscape view. But other than that, overall, I think it's an excellent design and excellent build quality, with a welcome change to see the longevity and repairability of the device taken into consideration and basically built in as a part of the design. As far as the specifications go, well, Remarkable Paper Pro has gotten a significant boost in pretty much everything when compared to the Remarkable 2, which is most definitely a good thing, because one of the things about the Remarkable 2 was that it was really underpowered. Approximate weight, that's the only important part here. It's a much bigger device and it's glass and metal, so it's 525 grams, so significant weight for people to consider. Thickness is 5.1 millimeters, which is still on the thinner side of things, but definitely not in the, realm of pursuing the thinnest device ever. It's using the Canvas Color display, which is a custom stack display based on E-Ink Gallery 3, 11.8 inches, 4.3 aspect ratio, 2160 by 1620 resolution, which amounts to 229 pixels per inch for all content, so monochromatic and color, it doesn't matter, all of it is at the same pixel density. It has obviously palm rejection and adjustable reading light, but it is important to mention that only intensity is adjustable on the reading light. The color is fixed, so you do not have control over the color adjustment for the reading light. The SoC that is powering the Remarkable Paper Pro is the really old 1.8 gigahertz quad-core Cortex A53. It would be nice for power efficiency and just for longevity reasons to find more modern types of SoCs in these devices, but apparently that's not what we're going to be getting. RAM is at 2 gigabytes LPDDR4, which is granted an increase, so it's double the size of what Remarkable 2 had, which had only 1 gigabyte of RAM, and considering that it's not running an Android but a custom version of a Linux-based OS, 2 gigabytes may be sufficient, but it's still going to be something that I think that it could have used a little bit more for higher capacity type of workloads, unless their internal OS has a really robust memory management system, which we know that the Remarkable 2 didn't have. I didn't run any robust tests that would stress the memory management system of the system on the Remarkable Paper Pro, but 2 gigabytes seems a little bit on the low side, especially with a quad core. 64 gigabytes of internal storage, which is definitely a huge plus, considering that the Remarkable 2 had only 8 gigabytes of storage, no micro SD card slot expandability here. The battery is at 5030 milliamp capacity, and we have standard Wi-Fi 2.4 and 5 gigahertz connectivity, no Bluetooth, so you won't be able to hook up your Bluetooth keyboard or anything like that to use with Remarkable. The only thing that you can use is the Remarkable Type Folio if you want to use keyboard with the Remarkable Paper Pro. And of course it has USB-C port and accessory port, which is the Pogo port, which is currently used for the Type Folio. And now finally it has auto wake and sleep sensors, detect when Folio is open or closed, but strangely no tilt detection, even though the whole system now does have a landscape functionality and format, yet no tilt detection. Obviously, one of the main considerations and main innovations in Remarkable Paper Pro is the color canvas display. While it is true, it is basically the bare bones and the hearts of it is based on the e-ink Gallery 3 panel. The amount of work and re-engineering and rebuilding of the screen and how it's going to be driven and used, something that Remarkable team has been working for quite a while. I think that this time it's rightfully so that they call it their own color canvas display, because all of this work is their own proprietary. This is not for licensing. You can't just go to the supplier and buy a screen like this and buy the software support and the driving and all that kind of stuff. No other device and no other manufacturer can actually deliver this type of color quality and performance in their devices. So that makes it truly one of a kind currently on the market. This is a 11.8 inch screen, which I mentioned. One of the things is like, oh, it's not 300 ppi. Well, no, it's 229 ppi, which is granted less than 300 ppi, sure. But if you compare the color content with the Kaleido 3 panels, which is the only equivalent kind of competitor on the market, then you have to take into consideration the fact that Kaleido 3 panels, when displaying color content, are at the best 150 ppi, and more likely they are kind of drifting between 100 ppi and 150 ppi. And if you make that comparison, well, then the 229 ppi is much better color resolution that you can have on this device. Granted, the black and white content, the text content, will also be on 229 ppi. It is absolutely nowhere near as crisp and sharp as it is on the Books Go 10.3, for example. The second aspect of the fact that it's using the Gallery 3 panel, or the custom stacked Gallery 3 panel, means that this is a true color e-ink panel. What does that mean? Well, it means that unlike the Kaleido 3 panels, they're using only black and white ink cells, and then they have a color matrix that is applied on top, and then combination of how much grayness, whiteness, or blackness you put behind which of the RGB strips on the matrix on the panel itself, you create an illusion of color. However, that means that you will never have true white, you will never have true black, and you will never have really good colors on a Kaleido 3 panel. And there's also a ton of inherent problems with the Kaleido 3 panel, two chief of which would be tremendous effort that needs to go into clearing out the display, because Kaleido 3 panels are prone to a horrible amount of ghosting. And the second part is that there's an inherent darkness which makes the screen darker, and also because of that color matrix that's always on top, all of the content will always be slightly fuzzy, because there's nothing you can do to remove the physical obstacle that's always on top of the content of anything that you're looking on that panel. That is not the case with the Gallery 3. The Gallery 3 panel, or in this case, the color canvas display, it actually has 4 ink cells per chamber. And those are cyan, yellow, magenta, and white. So it uses these basically print standards to combine and bring you color content on a per chamber basis. So what does this mean in terms of how a Gallery 3 panel compares to other panels? Well, obviously, compared to monochromatic panels, it has colors. When you compare it to a Kaleido 3 panel, it does not have that fuzzy screen, and all of the content is of equal resolution, which is not the case with the Kaleido 3 panels. And also the brightness, generally speaking, is brighter than it is on a Kaleido 3 panel, but it is still darker than what you will see on a regular monochromatic device. The palette is just much better, and it's able to create these lovely hues here. So for example, drifting in these areas of the rainbow, that is simply not possible on a Kaleido 3 panel. Now, what about the bad things? Well, obviously, you see it. The bad thing here is that in order to provide that kind of image quality, the technology itself is super early. And despite whatever that, witchcraft remarkable engineers have done to actually make this work, the refresh speeds are very, very slow, and the refresh methodology is flickery. There is no other way to describe that. And that flickering is the signature aspect of the Remarkable Paper Pro. That is an unfortunate fact that basically you have to keep in mind, and some people will be irked by this flickering notion, and some people won't care. This is simply an aspect of the device and the technology that you have to keep in mind, and you have to be the one who decides, I am okay with this or I am not okay with this. If you're not okay with this, then Remarkable Paper Pro and the Gallery Tree based technology is not for you, because this is as good as the Gallery Tree panel will ever be able to work. I don't really foresee anyone being able to extract more than what we see here currently from the Gallery Tree technology. So this is what it takes for this type of image quality and this type of performance to be delivered to the user. So that flickeriness, absolutely something that, number one thing that you have to keep in mind, that it's like, okay, this is a big negative thing. And depending on the content, of course, if you're just reading a book, then it doesn't flicker as much, as I will show you later on. But in full-on color content, which is the point of the device because it's color, right? Then you do have this very long time between refreshing and cleaning out the screen and delivering color contrast. The plus side of it is, I don't know if anybody noticed here, but you remember when I mentioned that Kaleido Tree panels suffer from terrible ghosting performance? Well, as you can see, we have absolutely zero ghosting, even in the absolute worst case scenarios, which is this one, going to the next page, and not having any of the white text or any shading, anything here at all. That is something that Kaleido Tree is simply not capable of. And even if it was, I absolutely guarantee you that the refresh time and the blinkiness and all that kind of stuff would be something that's measurable and comparable to what we have here. What are other negatives? Well, another negative is something that you may be already noticing here, but even though the brightness is better than on the Kaleido Tree panel, for example, the white is not pure white. It's not even pure gray. That is the problem of having 4 ink particles per cluster, and when they are all bunched together, as much as you push them all down and you put the white particles up, well, the density is still not there, and because it's 229 ppi, we have this very light gray with the yellowish tint kind of color for a white background. Now, it's not really distracting, and it's much better than what we've seen on other devices, but it is by no means something that you can compare to a regular monochromatic e-ink panel. Another thing that you absolutely have to keep in mind with the Gallery Tree or the color canvas display is that there are no black ink particles in this technology. The way that it actually produces this is it bunches up all of the ink particles together. It just gives you the illusion of a black color, as black as it can, but it can never be truly black. Now, granted, it's much better, again, much better than any other Gallery Tree device that I've seen before, but it's still a super dark indigo. Right? So depending on your lighting conditions and the content that you're looking, you will notice that indigo-ishness quality of the black more or less. But for my eyes, this looks really good. But if you do pay attention, and if the camera is able to catch, while it looks really good and almost black, this is not true black, and in certain angles and in certain situations, you will be able to perceive this as a mega dark indigo. So another thing that you absolutely have to keep in mind. Then again, this display is capable of combining and basically blending between all of these colors, which means that it can display up to 20,000 different colors. And this kind of gradient from the sun going all the way here, again, another thing that is simply physically not possible for a Kaleido tree panel to display. When reading regular text that are black and white, as I said, that blinkiness is no longer an issue at all. And on the contrary, for me, this kind of fading effect that you have when you're reading a regular text is really, really pleasant. Much more pleasant than the full screen blink that you would see if you want ghost-free type of refreshing on other or regular monochromatic e-ink displays or even Kaleido panels. This is basically like a cross-dissolve effect, which is very, very soft and very, very pleasant for extended reading purposes. And granted, you can on some devices, for example on books devices, you could enter a speed mode where you no longer have that full screen blink, but you will have a gradual accumulation of ghosting. And here you don't get ghosting and you get really, really nice performance here. Now, there we go. You can have a little bit of ghosting after reading a while, but the screen itself is doing some smart filtering. And what I've noticed is that over time, the biggest blotches of ghosting will simply kind of fade away. Not entirely perfectly, but you can kind of see in this area here, for example, when I flip the page, you probably will see yellowish lines here. And then they just kind of whoosh, fade away. Another aspect that you absolutely have to be aware of is that this is hard work for the screen, and you can actually physically hear the screen doing the work. Now, in a regular setting, when you're listening to music or something like that, of course, this is not an issue at all. However, if you are in a quiet room, this is something that you can actually hear even when you are not right next to the device. And considering that this device will be used by people when they are doing high concentration type of work and zero distractions type of work, this is something that is definitely noticeable and something that you have to keep in mind, because it's not a usual thing. This is on a higher level than what I've normally noticed in other devices, simply because it's a different type of technology. Now, another thing that you need to also keep in mind is that that type of sound, the refresh sound of the screen, is not going to be always the same. So it will depend on what type of work the screen is doing. So for example, here where it has a lot of lines and a lot of black and whites, and then it goes to fully white, or from fully white to this, it does a lot of work, and as you've heard, it does create quite a bit of sound. However, if you are using something like a regular text, for example, then the refresh sound is barely noticeable, but again, it will depend on your environment and the content that you are actually using. The image quality of just text or rendering of text is okay. It is not as good as the 300 ppi 10.3 inch devices, but it is better than the Kaleido 3 devices, even though they just also have 300 ppi black and white content. As I've said before, this device or this technology does not have that permanent passive color matrix on top of everything, so the rendering of black content is better and it's more clear on this device than it is on Kaleido 3 devices. However, you don't get to have a full-on black color. So here you can see it much more clearly that the blacks are not black. And here comes another thing. The thinner the content and finer the content, or finer a black line it is for this display to trying to display, less black and more indigo-ish it will be. So that is simply the nature of the technology itself. Another aspect to definitely keep in mind is that this device, this time Remarkable Paper Pro, is equipped with the automatic contrast filter. Well, it's by default automatic, but it can be turned on or off. In this case, it is recognizing the content here, right? So I'm just going to move here and it'll tell you what I change. So in this case, I'm pretty sure that it is turning the automatic contrast filter to on to make sure that the text pops more. So if I switch to off, there we go. The text becomes less bold, it becomes paler, but it becomes also finer. That basically is there to embolden the fonts and make them pop a little bit more. I really don't like this. After quite a while, I really don't like how it does the emboldening. I guess that definitely it's something that will be useful for some people, but for me, visually and as just pure image quality and rendering of characters or fonts, without filtering, it's just simply much cleaner. Although then it becomes more pale and less black. Now, as far as the contrast filtering with the color content, well, here's how it is without the contrast filter. And if you do apply the color contrast filter, then you will see that it basically just explodes everything to a much higher degree. Now, another thing that also is being exposed here, and this is why I wanted to combine it, is that while you do not have ghosting when you're flipping through content, unfortunately the refresh methodology, the softer side of the refresh methodology, is not really that complete, because the UI menu, when it goes away, it will leave quite a bit of ghosting. And it doesn't matter which contrast mode you are on. So for example, even if I go to off, it will clean it up, and I go back, I can still see the ghosting here, which is not normal, because if I have similar type of content within a page, it should be cleared up. And you can see that we also have remnants of the icons clearly visible here on the side. The front light is good, but calibrated in a really specific way that they really wanted it to be. So for example, this is the maximum intensity of the Remarkable Paper Pro, and this is the maximum intensity of the Tab X from Books. So in order to match roughly the illumination levels, I believe something on a matter of right around here kind of would work. Something like this would work, which is right around 55% of the intensity of the Max Illumi 2. Granted, I personally don't really need more than this, but the problem with this one is that sometimes you might want to have like a level or two more in certain situations, and from certain users who may have visual impairment issues of some sort, especially when the device can't really display a pure black content. Now, this is another aspect, which is when you actually empower the front light, while it doesn't wash away colors, which I'll show you a little bit, but here with the black content, you definitely see that it becomes much more indigo than it is when you are not using the front light. Another aspect is that what is the actual usability of levels 1, 2, and 3? I've tried in a pitch black room to try and see if I could ever use levels 1 and 2, and I really can't. I don't understand in which situations are you able to use this. As I said, in a pitch black room, yes, it glows a tiny bit, but nowhere enough to be able to actually read and use the device. So in a pitch black room, if I was really feeling adventurous, I would use it at the halfway point, or more often than not, on the second to last. And then it works really, really nice. And the maximum level also works fine. So for me, the front light works, it functions, it's okay, but the calibration of the intensity, I don't understand why 50% of it is basically unusable. There are no conditions where you would be able to effectively utilize any of these three levels down here, and that is just simply strange. So here is a darkened room, so I darkened the window next to me, and this is the maximum intensity, going down. And already here I can barely read in the room, and the camera is actually picking it almost correctly. And now when we go to the level 2 and level 1, this is still not off. This is level 1. This is pointless. This is completely pointless. That being said, the nature of the front light is very, very nice. It is uniform and it is of a nice quality. However, you do not have the ability to adjust the color of the front light. It's fixed. That's what you get, and that's pretty much it. The uniformity is very nice. The flexibility is very low. Another aspect that maybe the camera will be able to pick up, or maybe not, I'm really not sure, because of the really difficult for the camera, but when you are in a darker situation and you're using the front light at maximum, as you will usually do, it actually adds a little bit of a glowiness, illumination to the margins of the screen. And that is I don't know. For me, it's a little bit distracting because it's like a glowing edge and it keeps my eyes basically wandering down to that. But then again, it does give you this kind of softer edge on the side. So maybe somebody will like that, or maybe somebody will react badly to it, but it's something that you should be aware of. The color content is also displayed nicely with the front light and in dark conditions. It does wash out the colors a little bit and the contrast falls down, but it doesn't really completely wash them out or anything. So the greens are green, the blues are blue, the yellows are yellow. So all of the stuff is still visible. It's just that the contrast goes quite a bit down and you lose the blacks. You definitely lose any illusion of the blacks. They become indigos. And when you're kind of dealing with thinner type of content, like thinner fonts like this, then you may actually even struggle to kind of read things properly. But overall, it does look pretty, even in fully dark conditions with the front light turned all the way to the maximum. Another aspect of the front light being so weak is that despite it being weak, it will increase the power consumption of your battery. But the problem with it is that it doesn't have a light sensor or any kind of intelligence. So if you leave it on and you go into a more lit, more well-lit type of a room, you will never be able to see if the front light is actually turned on or off. And it happened to me on more than one occasion, like many occasions, that I noticed, hey, the battery is actually going a little bit faster than what I'm used to. Nothing dramatic, but noticeable, something that I noticed, only to notice, yeah, the front light has been on for the past, a day and a half without me being able to notice it in a my normal type of working conditions. And that again is a missed opportunity, because I think that they could have added a light sensor that would be able to intelligently measure out the lighting conditions of the environment and then see, hey, you may need the front light to be turned off or on, or automatically turn it off for power consumption purposes. So the screen being basically the main thing about the Remarkable Paper Pro, what's my overall impression of it? Well, I think it is absolutely impressive what they have achieved using the Gallery 3 technology, which is super limiting to begin with. So there's no question about it. They've managed to create something absolutely extraordinary, and it is a really significant technological achievement that has to be kind of acknowledged. However, not everybody is gonna care about that aspect at all, and some people, for the price that you have to pay, they will want to just use it and not care about the technological aspects that have been achieved here. So somebody who's not a nerd like me, justifyingly so, doesn't really care about all of that stuff, but they will care about the flickering, they will care about the lack of blacks, they will care about the front light intensity, and they will care about the lack of contrast when you're not really using the filtering on. So I think that, as I said before, the Remarkable Paper Pro will not be for everyone. It is a very specific kind of a thing, and it does certain things in a very specific way, and it compromises in order to achieve excellence on other levels. So it could have had an average type of display quality at the expense of less flickering and shorter refresh time, but they've opted against that, and for me personally, I valued that. I liked a device and I like a commitment when somebody says, hey, I'm not going to try and be a jack of all trades, I'm going to try and do this is my priority, and I'm going to compromise on points 2, 3, and 4. But just because I like that doesn't mean that everybody will, or that you personally will. But for me, for the image quality that I have here, I mean, this image here is just absolutely spectacular. And I nerdily know that some compromises will have to be made in order to actually achieve it. And for me, those compromises are fine, but they may not necessarily be at all okay or acceptable to you. And before I wrap up, one thing that's also really, really impressive and important to mention is that despite the Remarkable Paper Pro having a front light, the stack is so thin and so incredibly awesomely made that the actual distance from surface of the screen to the actual screen is slightly lower than it is on the Remarkable 2 that doesn't have a front light. And that is a remarkable achievement, no pun intended. Remarkable Paper Pro is using a completely new technology as well for the pen. So they are using an active pen, which is based on a standard that you can actually find on other devices, but it's using a custom driver and custom things. So even if you do find another active pen that's of the similar standard, and while it may do something on a device, it will not be able to provide the level of performance and the comfort and precision that the dedicated bespoke pens for the Remarkable Paper Pro will be able to do. Another thing to know is that this is an active pen and this is not an EMR pen. So neither the Premier nor the new standard marker are EMR pens, and the Remarkable Paper Pro is not equipped with a Wacom EMR layer at all. So that means that the old Remarkable pen, or indeed any other passive EMR pen, will not work on a Remarkable Paper Pro, and the new pens, while they work on the device itself, they will not be able to work on any other device, especially not the Remarkable or Remarkable 2, because they are not EMR pens. Both pens are using the same type of nibs, and these are new nibs as well. So not just the new pen and not just the new standard, but the new nibs as well, which there have been designed to, I don't know, mimic something that they like, and there are good aspects to them and there are bad aspects to them as well. So you can see the premium one I haven't used much. This is my own personal standard one, and it has been used. Definitely you can see that it's dulling down, that it's starting to become smaller and things like that. So these things, this is what you can expect from 3 weeks of normal use, I guess. That would be like regular use, daily use of the Remarkable Paper Pro. So unused nib, this is a 3 weeks. Used nib, and I don't have a heavy hand when writing. Both pens have both mechanical and software dampening of the pressure when writing, which, if calibrated correctly, which they have done, feels really, really good, especially with pressure sensitive pens. Now, this is also important because the surface of the Remarkable Paper Pro is glass, so it is a hard surface. The end result is that when you are writing on the surface, so not the initial contact, but when you're writing on the surface, when the nib is gliding along the surface of the screen and when you're actually writing it, the writing feel is absolutely phenomenal. This surface, it doesn't have a laminate on top to provide for paper-like writing feel, and it doesn't have a screen protector. No, it's the actual glass panel itself that has that relief to give that paper-like feel. So that also provides for image clarity and screen-to-surface contact minimization, which is really good. So while the nibs do provide for a really authentically beautiful paper-like kind of feel when it is in contact with the surface, there is a problem, and the problem is like I showed in the unboxing, the initial contact with the surface, because the nibs are not soft. So unlike these nibs, which were soft, you can hear the difference. Dull sound, meaning soft, much sharper, much harder, and you actually do feel it throughout the pen itself. So this is one of the reasons why the in-depth review is so much later, and I wanted to spend genuine 3 weeks of just using this device on a daily basis so that I can gather my impressions and give you a real world impressions and review of the device, not just how it is when you have first impressions, which I've already done. Now I want to give you my real impressions after actually using it for an extended period of time. And as far as the pen goes, no, I have not gotten used to this thing, nor have I gotten over how wonderful it feels when you're writing. So you have this push me, pull me type of love-hate relationship with the new pen screen and the nib, which at the same time, while you're writing, you have this really unpleasant clicky hardness constantly happening, because when we write, we have this type of activity, right? So every time when I'm doing here, I'm feeling that click, I'm feeling that hardness. But then I get to draw the continuous line, and the vibrations and the tactile feel of it is absolutely wonderful. So that's something that's just, it didn't balance out over this period of time, and I don't think that it will balance out either. When I switched over from 3 weeks back to my Go 10.3, I was really relieved not to have the clickiness constantly, but I also missed that scratchiness and the writing or the surface feel that you have on the Paper Pro as well. So I don't think that there's an easy answer for this. I think that the only proper answer that they would need to do is to come up with softer nibs of this new standard, because unfortunately this is a new standard that you can't really find a replacement for easily. So that's something that you have to kind of keep in mind, and hopefully they will figure it out that, you know, some users may want to use soft nibs as well, and that would be, I think, a very welcome addition, because then you would no longer have that clickiness, which is for me the main point of concern as far as writing feel and the new pen goes. Now there are other also things to kind of consider. As I said, you have the standard pen and you have the premium pen. Both are very expensive, but they are the same price as before. And the problem here is that the standard marker has gotten a downgrade as far as the quality level goes. Simply put, it is of a worse quality and of worse feeling materials than it used to be on the Remarkable 2 for the same price, I guess. So while the Remarkable 2 standard marker had this pleasant, softer, kind of maybe rubberized feel that is really, really nice in hand to actually use, and it doesn't slip or anything like that. That is unfortunately now gone on the standard marker here, and you can maybe see the shyness here. This is hard plastic. There's nothing fancy about it. It feels hollow as it is, and that vibration that you're actually hitting when writing just transfers here. And it's a bare bones type of marker, which again kind of defies any logic to me, because you went through all of the effort of switching over to an active pen and you didn't add functionality buttons that can maybe switch between preset 1 and 2 and maybe do an eraser. But instead, for the super duper expensive marker plus or whatever they call it, it's the same new standard stuff. You get the rubberized feel that you had on the standard marker on Remarkable 2, and you get the eraser at the back. And that's it. And the eraser works, but there's nothing really new when you compare the functionality of the previous premium marker on Remarkable 2 than this one. Yet the capabilities are certainly there. So I think that this is certainly a missed opportunity on the premium marker at the very least, that they did not have a version with buttons, and one of the buttons can actually just flip between these two, and another one is programmable button, and it could be that the selection tool is another button for that, because the selection tool is becoming more and more intelligent, and that's their idea. So why not make the pen an integral part of the system that actually just works with it when the technology absolutely allows for that? I really don't know. So that's the situation with the new pens, and it's not a clear-cut situation at all. And the writing feel is neither a clear-cut situation at all, because, as I described, you have good sides, you have bad sides, and it's a tricky thing. The only thing that's really, really clear for me is that the standard marker is most definitely a downgrade from the standard marker that we used to have on a Remarkable 2. This being an active pen means that it does have an internal battery, but you do not charge it not via USB-C, and you don't change the battery. The batteries are charged via the device itself, and when you attach them, you get the little battery icon here. And the cool thing about the battery or the pen itself, something that I really, really like, is that when the device is sleeping and you just pick up the pen, it wakes up so that it's ready to work. This is something that is so handy on a day-to-day basis that I absolutely love. So that is a very, very big plus on the overall functionality with the new pen. And obviously the contact with the magnet is incredibly strong and good, and that is also a really, really big plus when compared to the Remarkable 2 or other devices as well. As far as the battery life goes on Remarkable Paper Pro, it's okay at best, but it will get you through, regular type of use for a couple of days, but definitely not weeks of use. The standardized battery testing that I do for devices that are equipped with a front light, which Remarkable Paper Pro is, I run the manual reading test. For reading test, I manually flip pages every 20 seconds of a document that has mainly text, but it does have some images as well and some illustrations as well. Wi-Fi is turned on, and I just simply flip that for 1 hour in different conditions, and then I average out the results. With the front light set at 100%, Remarkable Paper Pro was averaging out 12.5 hours of continuous reading time per charge, which was good when you compare it to, for example, Book's Note Air 3C, which would be a direct competitor, which was averaging out only 8.3 hours per charge. Then when we would lower the front light a little bit less, so On monochromatic devices, that's usually 30%. On color devices, it's around 50% to combat the inherent darkness of either technologies. And in this case, we're combating the darkness of the front light. So the 50% on Remarkable Paper Pro is really, really low intensity. And there we had 16.6 hours of continuous reading time per charge. And that compares to, for example, Note Air 3C 14.28. And you can see that monochromatic devices without BSR now jump up to unobtainable and imaginary 66 hours of continuous reading time per charge. When the front light is turned off, however, this is where we actually see that, yeah, the intensity of the front light really doesn't matter here, because we have the exact same 16.6 hours of continuous reading time per charge on the Remarkable Paper Pro, which basically comes to the same thing that we see on the Note Air 3C. So reading-wise, the performance is nothing really great, but still not really as bad as the Book's BSR-enabled devices. Now, with the writing test, it's the same thing, but I write continuously for half an hour in certain conditions, and then for half an hour in other conditions as well. And here I test front light only at 50% and without front light. So we can see that the Remarkable Paper Pro with the front light set at 50%, it was averaging out 6.66 hours of continuous writing time per charge, and with the front light turned off, it would average out 11.1 hours of continuous writing time per charge, which is definitely not bad, because in my book, anything that can go 8 hours or more of continuous writing per single charge is good enough to get you through an insanely busy day, and Remarkable Paper Pro was definitely able to do that. One note, however, really important one, while I was performing the handwriting battery consumption test, I noticed that Remarkable Paper Pro was also basically heating up noticeably so, sort of like the AI Paper did and the AI Paper Mini. Now, it's not in the same category as the AI Paper, so it's slightly less than the AI Paper, but it was definitely noticeable, and you could definitely feel it in the bottom third of the device, around the center-ish kind of the screen. The longer I was writing, more warm it would get, but it didn't get to the hot point, so it was basically just lukewarm. But yeah, definitely something to keep in mind, and not something that we noticed on Remarkable 2 or any of the other devices. I mean, majority of devices do not exhibit that kind of thing. Remarkable Paper Pro does. Considering that the device is coming with brand new, internals and better hardware, better processing units, better everything, that's something that you absolutely feel throughout the whole, interaction with the device, with the main menu and all of these things. So that part is really, really good, and it works really fine. So that's something that's quite nice. Unfortunately, however, the software side of things have not really received a significant improvement in performance handling. Most notably, I'm thinking about the handling of EPUBs. And previously, the problem with Remarkable 2 and EPUBs was, well, this opened nicely, right? So what is the problem? If I go to settings here and I want to adjust text settings, which is the whole point of an ebook, right? So that you can customize it to your own liking. And I dare to do something like this, like change the font size. It says that your annotations, if you were annotating, it will misalign. So there's no intelligent following of the content. So that's something that you need to know. But far more importantly is that when you save the chat settings, then it starts processing, and that is going to take a long time, because it's processing from page 1 until where you are, right? So if you do the formatting change on page 1, it will be instantaneous. But see, here I'm on page 400 and something, and this is how long it takes. And it's gonna, there we go. And then it changed. And this is something that hasn't been changed for 7 years. They haven't had I guess, the chance or prioritization to change this. All I know is that other devices with lower specs and older devices are able to do this in a different way. So this is certainly something that I would expect from, as a 7-year-old problem and on a brand new device. I would have expected this to be in a better state overall. General functionalities are fine as far as performance goes, but the performance is not really, I can't really call it super fast, because depending on how big of a notebook you have, sometimes it will open up really quickly, but sometimes it's gonna get a little bit, there we go, slower. And it's actually kind of hindered by the refresh methodology of the screen and what it has on the screen. So black and white content, I can flip perfectly fine through here, lots of content here, and it's actually working nicely. So this all stuff is okay. But when I get to this point, this page where I have these yellow highlights, I can't quickly just pass by it. I have to wait for the device to do its thing, and then it allows me to kind of go further, and that's really not that great. So the preview here is actually an area where it still is quite good, but you need to know that more non-clearing actions you perform, more ghosting you're gonna see, and this is why I'm doing it, because you can see how ghosting is accumulating here in a form of a yellowish kind of a tint. So this is how the ghosting would be, but you can see that the active deghosting, how it works, how it kind of clears itself up. So I can junk it up all the way, and then you can see the device gradually cleaning that kind of stuff up. So that to me is also part of the performance, because it actually works. And even though you do have like a splotch here, if you wait like, I don't know, 30 seconds or something like that, it will eventually clear itself out. However, I have noticed two things. Sometimes it doesn't deghost all the way, like now, thankfully, you can probably see it. So the deghosting performance is depending on what you're actually doing. And sometimes I do get, when I'm using a yellow color or other colors, I get some weird artifacting here on the user menu here, and the icons just kind of popping like a yellowish kind of thing. And basically that's when you're switching from a tool to another tool, it doesn't really deghost completely, and then you have a yellowish kind of remnants. Handling full space images, that's how it is. So it's going to be very slow when you have very demanding type of content, but it's going to deliver spectacular type of content, right? So it's going to be very, very nice. But what I've noticed is that it can struggle sometimes with more demanding, fuller type of content here. It can struggle a little bit. So here I have like a full page, but you can see that it's a little sluggish. It's not as fast as flipping the other book, which has just text here. This is now actually fairly sluggish. And that's not something that I can kind of characterize as good performance. So I'm just trying to say, like, all of the performance overall, these are different aspects. So, but I'm just trying to gauge the overall performance of the device itself. So I'm just saying, like, navigation through MDO, for example, something that's far, far faster on Remarkable 2, this is taking some time. So this is working, but because of that clearing out, deghosting and ghosting and all that kind of stuff, it just isn't really that good. And this leads me to another aspect as well, which is the overall image performance of the Remarkable 2. There is a problem, and I've talked to them about it. And currently, this is a software issue, not a hardware issue. Currently, the Remarkable OS is rendering content in such a way that it's not really authentic or good, and you're losing basically aspects of the grayscale. The Remarkable is the only platform where other documents, and for example MDO as well, can look more pale than it does look on other devices. So what do I mean by that? Well, here is the same exact document on the Go 10.3, and if you show the same document on pretty much any device, you will see that it renders normally. What does normally mean? Well, the darkness of the gray. So for example, you can see that Monday and that the weekdays and the weekends are of a different color, and as well that there's a coloration here. If I check that out on a Remarkable, that light gray is gone and the darker gray is much lighter, which means that they've basically bumped up the way that it's rendering, and it's disclosing and it's considering, hey, this light gray is actually white, so I'm going to render it white, and I'm going to compress things up so that I can artificially get a better contrast. Now, somebody may say like, okay, so maybe that's the automatic contrast, so if I turn it off, then it's even paler. So if your automatic contrast is off, then you get this really, really strange kind of situation, because if you see the lines and the numbers, they become really, really pale, and this is not normal. So you can see that the lines are becoming even more pale, and it definitely isn't how the rendering should be. So you can see, like, yeah, everything is gone. You don't have the grays anywhere. It's just like all completely gone. So what you can do until they fix it, I think that they said that in update 3.17 that they are going to fix this, then you can use the automatic filtering. Unfortunately, on a Remarkable 2, you have the same problem, but you don't have that automatic contrast filtering, so you will just have that super pale content. So hopefully this is something that they will improve sooner rather than later. But yeah, it's not really something that I can characterize as a good type of performance image quality wise. And incidentally, you also see the difference between the screen whiteness and the color tint between the Remarkable Paper Pro and the Books Go 10.3. And just general-wise performance, I think, is hindered by the screen refresh performance here, because here's a typical thing. I would switch from a document to a notebook, right? So, wait, see that? That took a long time. Switch to this. And so on and so forth. So I can't really characterize that the overall performance of the Remarkable Paper Pro is better. Some aspects are better and faster. So for example, the overall responsiveness to the user interface and operations, but real world operations and real world usability is hindered, and the bottleneck here is the screen technology and the refresh methods, and more often than not you will end up waiting for that refresh to finalize itself before you are even allowed to perform the next operation. So the overall writing experience performance is blisteringly fast, and it is the fastest writing latency that we currently have on the market, as the test showed. So
Let's roll that footage.
Well, Test the Test revealed and confirmed what Remarkable had told me in when I was actually visiting them and checking out the Remarkable Paper Pro for the first time, because they said that the writing latency should be at around 12.5 milliseconds or something like that. And the Test the Test actually confirms or measures out at 13 milliseconds of writing latency, effectively making the Remarkable Paper Pro the fastest device with the fastest writing latency currently in the world. One very, very important note: this is the writing latency of the black ink, right? So when you're writing. And the impressive thing for me with the writing latency was the consistency of the updating of the screen and the precision. So typically I do 5 to 10 runs and then I average out and see what the results are. And this was, you know, spot on every single time, which is most definitely not the case with every device that I test here. And it's more of a rarity than you know, a rule. So that is just a testament to just how well the Remarkable Paper Pro is suited for writing related tasks and just the overall robustness of the writing system that they have in place for the Remarkable Paper Pro. The surface writing or the friction when compared to the paper on the Remarkable Paper Pro, it measured at around 46.97, so 47% of the roughness of the actual piece of paper, and actually quite considerably better in that respect than the Remarkable 2. It's still not, you know, papery like the Quaderno or even like the Remarkable 1, which was more papery like, because it didn't have that glass screen, it had a plastic screen, so that definitely makes a difference. But for a glass screen, and definitely, you know, considering that it doesn't have a laminated layer on top or a screen protector on top, but it's actually just the glass itself, that is something that's quite good. And finally, the surface to display distance on the Remarkable Pro measures out to what they told me that it should be around 0.9 something millimeters, and that's pretty much exactly what we have here at around 0.9 millimeters, including the stack for the front light as well.
When you couple that with the really excellent reflectivity of the screen, which is really good, combined, for the most part, the writing feel on the Remarkable Paper Pro has elements of the best writing feel on the market, and it would be, absolutely would be, hands down, the best writing feel device on the market currently, and performing of course, but the feel itself here is a problem, were it not for that hard clackiness. And if that hard clackiness is something that distracts you, I don't see that you can actually get used to it. But what I will say is that over 3 weeks I didn't get used to that, but now that I've stopped using it and I've, you know, reverted back to other devices that I've used for a long time, I miss that everything else about the writing feel except the clackiness, the initial contact, which is unfortunately constantly present when you're writing, but everything else I actually do miss because it feels incredibly good. So yeah, it's so close to being perfect, but that clackiness, it's not a small thing. It just it affects it in quite a bit. Now, I won't be going into any kind of guide or going through, you know, pan options and all that kind of stuff. It works exactly the same as it works on Remarkable 2. So maybe I'll do a separate video where it's a guide for Remarkable and things like that, and then I'll cover everything here. But now I'm covering the specifics of the Remarkable Paper Pro. And the important specifics of the Remarkable Paper Pro, where it differentiates from Remarkable 2, is in the rendering quality of the lines themselves. And because it does have processing, so it does have very nice post-processing. That means that gone are the jaggedy, ugly looking, you know, writings that you have on Remarkable 2, for example, and the writing quality and the precision is really a lot better than what we have on the Remarkable 2. So that is a significant improvement when compared to the Remarkable 2. However, there are some issues that are important to consider. So, for example, here I have a grid, and this is I can't make it more obvious because it's because of the before mentioned performance issue with the rendering quality. But hopefully you do see the grid, and you do see these dots, and these dots were actually made always on the cross section of the grid, and I try to make them as precise as I can, and sometimes they will be precise, sometimes they won't. And that is normal because that is a part of calibration, right? So that is what the pen calibration process should be about. However, sometimes it happens that the device simply has an offset from where these guys are. And I did notice that when it is in a folio, I assumed that the magnets are causing that, so you will have some deviations when the device is in the magnet in the folio as opposed to when it's outside of the folio. So I think that that's something worth checking out. But this also definitely exposes another software issue in the closed-mindedness of the platform, which is it's all fine and dandy that you rely on the system to be actually smart and get out of the way all of the unnecessary stuff for the user. So for example, I assume that it's doing some smart type of auto calibration of the pen from time to time in some way. But in these situations, it would be nice if we would have manual calibration as well, because even if the magnetic thing wasn't a thing and you had everything, the nib spends over time, and the distance, the height that you will be writing on also changes over time. So it would be good to have an option to recalibrate the pen and just allow for an even better and more precise type of a writing experience. But unfortunately, the platform is generally closed, so like everything else, that's also not an option that you can choose. Another aspect that you actually have to be aware of is when you want to write in colors, right? They are doing a smart cheat kind of way where they had to again compromise. So if you start writing in color, you will see that you get three type of things happening. When I start writing, I'm writing in black, and the yellow color is trailing along. You can see how it's chasing me along. So all the way here we have the black one, and the color is chasing me along. And that is aspect number 1 and 2. 1 is you're writing in black to allow for the fastest possible writing latency despite or regardless of which color it is that you're using, because the color does have display, or the display does have color limitations where different pigments are going to be rendered in different speeds. So they've went ahead and did that. So you have this black tail basically chasing me here, or trailing behind me, and that is the difference in latency between the black and the color content that you see. So those are aspects 1 and 2, and when I lift, you will see aspect number 3, which is it's going to process it and display full-on Bonanza color only once it is done. However, that is done only a while after, and it's also blinky. So that's something that you absolutely have to be aware of, that it's just how it works. And if it's not something that you like, the blinkiness, you gotta get used to it if this is what you want to use. The end result is really good, but and they really did try, but if you try and start writing while it's refreshing, there we go. There are sometimes aspects when, or timing when, there we go, when it's basically disappearing the line and you try to write during that time, there we go, it's kind of gets a little bit glitchy. So that refresh, while it's quite smart and it's trying to be out of the way, There are instances when it will be in the way. So again, something that you have to keep in mind. And another thing is that when you have this kind of color content on the screen, everything is rendered in like phases. So first you will see the black stuff appearing, then all of the stuff is rendered in black first. Then it blinks away, and then it's like, okay, then re-render it in this color, and then, you know, it kind of works. So a lot of blinkiness in reading, a lot of blinkiness in writing as well. And yeah, definitely something that you have to keep in mind. But overall, the writing feel, the writing performance, and the writing aspect of the Remarkable Paper Pro is, as I said, almost perfect, but this is an issue. I covered the covers in the unboxing as well, but quickly here for those who haven't watched it, you have two types of covers or three types of covers that are available. I recommend using the non-leather ones, because the leather ones do have this kind of strange resistance where the device can't really properly get into position or as easily as it does in the canvas one, canvas-like one. So if you're interested in more in that, then go check out my unboxing and first impressions video. I covered that in detail there. But the covers in general are really, really nicely made, and they're of an excellent quality. The non-leather ones. The leather ones have some manufacturing issues such as sharp edges and friction that I mentioned as well. General design, I really love the fact that the flap goes away and it has an indentation here and a really nice magnet that kind of holds it in place, so it's out of the way when you don't need it, and really, really easy to flap it here so that it holds the pen should you need it, even if the magnetic forces are holding it to the nth degree. You have the lovely Remarkable here just sticking out ever so slightly, and nothing else anywhere on the side. Overall, it's a really nice package. It doesn't add too much to the weight and doesn't add too much to the thickness, so it just feels like a really, really good package, and I enjoyed using this on a daily basis really, really a lot. Now, the Remarkable Paper Pro is coming also with the updated type Folio as well. So you have this canvas-like type of surface with the same flap that goes on the back as well. So that aspect works pretty much exactly the same. And the device slots into the Folio in the same way, except that you have the pogo pins here to make the contact with the keyboard. The opening method has been improved, and it's actually much more easy to, or much easier to use. And you still do have the two heights here, with the added difference that you no longer have to go to the middle, but you actually just have access to this right here on the side. You don't have to fiddle around too much on the side there. Other than that, I really do like the improvements of the type Folio. So for such a small surface, I mean, having the device to be larger means that they had more real estate for the typing here as well, and that is a really good thing, because you don't have to, you know, bend your wrists way too much. You can actually get a more natural type of a writing feel, something like this, so that you can type like this. You still do have to do quite a bit of this, but you know, considering the size, it's actually better than what we had. The feel of the keys is a little bit different, and some people will like it, some people won't. I do like it. It's a little bit more resistant-y, more not really rubbery, but gummy. It's a little bit more gummier, I think, than plasticky, and it definitely feels good. Whether or not you like that, that's another issue. That's something that you will have to kind of decide for yourself. But the overall quality is absolutely there. Now, this is a backlit keyboard as well, and I did make some footage of that, but for the life of me, I don't understand two things. Why the lighting intensity is so low on it. And the second part is, why aren't all of the keys illuminated? Why is it only the letters that are illuminated? Here's the thing. Sometimes I will get into this situation where the system becomes just not really properly responsive. And when it all works, it works really good, but there are definitely software issues here. And I think that you can definitely see it kind of happening here. Hopefully the camera can pick it up, because this was a difficult bug for me to reintroduce, but most of the time this all works fine. But you can see that clearly we are right now in a bugged state of mind, I guess. So I'm trying to kind of reset it so that it starts understanding things a bit better, but it's very, very kind of buggy. So I'm gonna try and open up a different one. Okay, so I'm gonna go into type mode, and it's still having some issues, because this is not normal responsiveness here, right? And it's not really reacting to things properly. So what I'm gonna try is I'm gonna reset it and see if reseating it actually helps. Okay, so I've reseated it now, hopefully all in one take, so that we can actually see how it works. So edit text, and there we go. And now okay, and now it functions as it should. So this is the normal performance and functionality that you should expect from the type Folio. But as you have seen, sometimes it can bug out. And like any other problems, just unplug it and plug it back in, allow it to reestablish connection in a good way, and then it will work. But definitely, some things to kind of work out, and some things that that still need quite a bit of improvement. You got illumination control both for the keyboard and for the front light of the device. That being said, while it is less of a bulky package than what we had on the old type Folio, it still most definitely adds to the weight quite a bit and to the bulkiness. It's a really good package, it's a really nice looking thing, but when you compare it to the thinness and the portability and the especially lightness of the non-type Folio, I mean, it's definitely something to consider. And I'm just gonna add the photos of the weighing these things all together, how much they weigh.
So it's the conclusion time for the Remarkable Paper Pro, and as usual, let's start with the cons. And the first con will have to be absolutely the refresh methodology and speed performance, because there is no other way around it. If you do have more complex content, you will have this kind of flickering kind of thing, and it's not limited only to reader performance. It is definitely something that, as I've already shown, is absolutely present when writing as well. And this is something that some users may not be able to get used to at all, but is something that will be constantly present. So if there is one leitmotif of living with Remarkable Paper Pro, it would be you better get used to flickering type of refresh, because that's all that this device is going to be doing. Another con for me would be the way that the device is currently handling grayscale content, and not just grayscale content, it's something that you can actually see on other types of content, and the calibration is not that sensitive, so some of the color content is lost and may be too pale, and the contrast might not be too good. So hopefully that is something that will be remedied in the upcoming update 3.17, I believe, is what was mentioned by Remarkable to me, that's when they are planning to tackle that. But so far, that's definitely something that you will have to kind of keep in mind, because it's present on Remarkable 2 and it's present on Remarkable Paper Pro, but with one addition, that if you're reading, so if you're in the reading performance, then you do have that automatic contrast, or the contrast filter application, but unfortunately that's not something that's present in the notebooks, and more often than not, you know, the pale lines of the templates, they can get lost and simply really hard to see on a Remarkable Paper Pro. Another con would be not the front light itself. I actually like how the front light is done, but the implementation and the balancing of the intensity of the front light just doesn't make sense, because these first two are basically unusable, and the third one is, you know, the halfway point is basically the first usable point of the front light intensity, and I just don't really understand why they went with that decision. While the front light quality is definitely good, the flexibility is not there, and the intensity range is not something that some of the users will be okay with. Another con would be, for me, the downgrade in quality that you get of the standard marker pen when compared to the quality that we had with the standard marker pen for the Remarkable 2. The response that I got from Remarkable team was that this was an intentional design and a decision, because they really wanted to make sure that the premium pen felt more premium, better, and they've achieved that, but at the expense of making the marker worse. And my counter argument would be, sure, by all means, make the premium pen feel better by making it better, not by making the standard marker worse. That's just kind of cheating, isn't it? Now, this con is extremely specific, but very important one, and this is something that's definitely going to impact quite a few users, and that is the hardness of the first contact with the surface when writing. So we have a hard nib, we have a hard screen, and you just keep hearing that all the time. You better get used to that, because currently these are the only nibs that we have, and until or unless Remarkable does come out with maybe a softer nib replacement that goes there, then that would kind of get rid of that clacky thing. Yeah, that's definitely something that you have to keep in mind, and might be a deterrent for some users. While I completely understand the general mentality of having a lockdown system and offering to the users only what it is that you want to offer and what you think is best, I think that Remarkable platform is too locked down, and it's going way too much in that direction, and they need to loosen things up quite a bit more, because some of the decisions that the team makes are not good, and some of the decisions will be good for some users and will not be good for other users. And I think that it's completely unreasonable to not offer really simple things, such as pen calibration, that you can manually calibrate it as your nib wears down, or maybe your device magnetizes or demagnetizes or something like that. Basic stuff. Or let's get it even more basic. How about having an option to use infinite pages in notebooks or not? Not all of us want it, and when I don't want it, I really hate the thing that it starts scrolling around. And when we're talking about that, in a reading experience, why not have an option for the user to choose, hey, I want to have the extra margin space, or I don't want to be able to zoom out past the normal default zoom state of the document. These are the things that are so essential that I don't see what excuse could there possibly be to not have these things implemented in the system. And the reason why I'm mentioning them is that these are the things that I've personally experienced during these 3 weeks, and they were crutches for me, because I would, like on any other device, you will get an accidental palm reject that's, gonna do something. But unfortunately on this device, it's either going to start scrolling a page where I don't want it, be it a notebook, be it a PDF, or zoom it in a way, and the way that OS and gestures are currently implemented, it is a faff to actually get back to normal. So it's a huge distraction from just working. Then the device suddenly does something that I really don't want it to do, nor did I ask it to do. And then I have to completely stop what I'm doing, start thinking about the device, start thinking about the gestures, about how did they implement it, then that really doesn't work. Oh, it's not one finger, it's two finger. Oh, wait until it actually recognizes. It's just not distraction free, which is in contrast of what the device is actually trying to be. So that's why that whole area is a con as far as I'm concerned. Another con for me would be the state of the leather folio cover, at least the one that I have received. Now, I don't know if this is like an earlier batch and maybe the later batches will be corrected, but the build quality and the sharpness of the edges was way too sharp, and the surface here where the device is supposed to actually lay down had too much friction and didn't allow for a precise placement of the device into the cover. And that being actually the premium and more expensive cover, that's really not something that you want to see. Occasionally I would get an incorrect connection with the type of folio, and it would kind of manifest itself the way that you saw before, which is like, I have contact, I don't have contact, I'm working, I'm not working. Thankfully it's an easy thing to fix, so you just take the device out, you put it back in. But that's not something that I had ever experienced on the Remarkable 2, but I have experienced it actually a couple of times on the Remarkable Paper Pro. Another very important con for the Remarkable Paper Pro is that when you're doing a longer writing session, and it doesn't have to be super long, let's say 15 minutes of writing, you will start to notice that the device around this area here is going to start to heat up. Now, it will reach a peak and it will not overheat past a certain point. So there is a heatsink type of distribution that does occur, but unlike on a Remarkable 2 and unlike on majority of the devices that you normally use, on Remarkable Paper Pro you will actually feel it working hard. Now, that warming up is just a little bit warmer. It's not lukewarm, it's not hot by any means or anything like that, but it is something that you will feel to the touch. While the battery life itself is perfectly fine, so it's not great, it's not bad, it's fine. What I do think is a con is the charging time. So no matter what type of charger you put it up to, it's going to take around 4 hours for it to fully charge. And in 2024, with the devices basically charging in a much different way, I was expecting something better and something more. So it's not catastrophic, but it is an event, it's charging. So it takes time for it to charge. That being said, 4 hours for it to charge, for it to last for around 5 days, not really that bad, but it's something to definitely keep in mind. And now on to the pros, and absolutely, pro number one absolutely has to be the color canvas display and what the Remarkable team was able to achieve with the challenging technology that is Gallery 3. There is no other device currently on the market that is capable of doing this the way that the Remarkable Paper Pro is doing it. Yes, it flickers. Yes, it's a con. Absolutely. So it's something that you absolutely have to keep in mind. But the trade-off is, basically the way that I look at it is, that's the compromise that you either accept or you don't for having this. Now, Another aspect would be how usable is color content and how vital is it on a limited platform like Remarkable 2 is, but that's for another discussion. But just as a, aspect of a device, absolutely the biggest pro will have to be the color canvas display. Another huge plus, of course, is the writing latency, because at 13 milliseconds, Remarkable Paper Pro is currently the device with the fastest writing latency currently on the market. The writing feel when you're not doing the contact, right? So not when you're doing the first contact, but when you're actually gliding across the surface of the screen. It is among the best writing feels that I have felt. Unfortunately, it is marred by that other big con that I've already mentioned. However, that contact with the surface while you're writing really feels good, and it's something that when I stopped using it and went back to other devices, I actually missed that quite a bit. Build quality is absolutely spectacular. It just feels so good and so premium from every angle that you kind of approach it. The only thing that I think is a missed opportunity is that the USB-C is on the bottom and not on the top. So that is just an inconvenience, but other than that, everything else feels and looks really premium. Front light, while it is limited, so you do have limited intensity and you do not have color calibration, I think that the color calibration is actually done really well. So I really don't have a beef with that, other than that maybe some people and some users will have maybe a certain type of condition where this type of calibration or color calibration might not work for them specifically. But as a general kind of thing, yes, the color calibration has been made in such a way that it actually contributes and supports the color content of the device and doesn't really colorize it too much. It does, yes, it does kind of bleach it out a tiny little bit, but other than that, it's really good. The front light uniformity is excellent, and the comfort level of the front light is really excellent as well. I just wish that two things: that we had more usable intensity range of the front light, and much more importantly, that the device was equipped with a light sensor so that it could automatically disable the front light when it is not needed, as that would have been a very good battery saving feature. I also think that it's a very nice design. I love the attention to details and the execution of those details on the Remarkable Paper Pro. It just looks and feels really good, and I think that it matches the name, the Pro nomenclature. I think that it matches it really well. It is not gaudy, it is not flashy, it's not in your face. It's just, a device that you want to use, and once you start actually interacting with it, it oozes quality, and yeah, it makes it pro. The improved internals are a very welcome change. Now, while, as I've demonstrated, the performance will be bottlenecked by the refresh of the screen, refresh methodology of the screen in certain operations, overall the performance have been definitely a lot more improved than what we've had on the Remarkable 2, for example. So menu interactions, pinch to zoom, and certain other actions are really good. Certain aspects of the performance, definitely a pro. It's just a shame that the performance is not equally across the board, that it's actually a little bit of up and down. I absolutely love this color as well, but also the new flip book cover. I think that the design, the way the flap goes back, the way it holds the pen, and all of that kind of stuff, I mean, it's just such a well designed and executed product that it's a joy to use. So unlike the leather one, the regular canvas one is really good. The pen, especially the premium pen, feels really good, and the magnetic hold, both of the device and the pen, is exceptionally good. And additionally, the fact that when you just pick up the pen, it wakes the device up instantly, it's a huge plus as well. And it's definitely something that I wish more devices actually had, because in real world daily usability, that is one of the features that I loved more, maybe the most, out of the Remarkable Paper Pro. The ghost-free refreshing, selective refreshing of the screen is really, really impressive. So for the most part, it works in a really, really good way, and it's especially impressive when you see when sometimes it happens that you do something and there's a bit of ghosting that kind of jumbled up in one part of the screen, and then you see the device is gradually kind of like scrubbing it away. It's not perfect. Sometimes you will get a situation where some ghosting will remain, and most notably it's actually weirdly related to the remnants from the user interface, which basically is the only time when you will see remnants of ghosting. But when you're just doing reading or flipping pages of your notebooks or documents, yeah, you're basically going to have a completely ghosting free experience, so it's pretty good. I love the fact that we are able to now have, if you have the Connect subscription, that you can have now up to 3 devices attached to your one Remarkable account, which means that you can continue using a Remarkable 2 and a Remarkable Paper Pro at the same time and synchronize the content effortlessly between 2 of them, and basically just pick up where you left off if you're going from one device to another, which is definitely a very good convenience. And the way the whole ecosystem with synchronization works, it's extremely effortless, and for the most time, for me it worked most of the time. I didn't really have any synchronization issues, which is something that the platform suffered from in the past, but I think that they got that ironed out. So the overall ecosystem of the Remarkable for this type of work is actually quite good. The biggest surprise for me is actually the convenience of the 11.8-inch format of the Remarkable Paper Pro. It's just such a good Goldilocks kind of a standard that I really do, out of all of the things that I miss from moving off the Remarkable Paper Pro into my devices that I normally use, that is the one that I'm actually missing most, that and Wake Up on the pen move. So those are the 2 aspects that I really do miss on other devices, because there's something about this aspect ratio that is just right. At least for my both reading and writing needs, it's just right. 13.3, a little bit too big, very nice, but a little bit too big. 10.3, a little bit too small. This, smack in the middle and just right. So yeah, that 11.8-inch, something about that format that's really spot on. Well, okay, so that is the Remarkable Paper Pro, the in-depth review so far. There are quite a few aspects to actually cover on this device, but I wanted to cover the most important ones and most the immediate ones. Now, I'm absolutely sure that some people are going to say, like, oh, you didn't show comics, or you didn't do this, you didn't do that. No, I didn't, but I will do them in the future. So if you do want to see something else specifically tested on the Remarkable Paper Pro, please do leave a comment down below. And if that's something that I think that it's actually worthwhile doing, then I will definitely check it out. But in this edition of the in-depth review, I wanted to give you like a more like a realistic wrap-up and impression of what it's like to live and work with Remarkable Paper Pro for about 3.5 weeks now, and that's where this in-depth review perspective is basically coming from. I hope that you liked the video. If you did, please like and subscribe and ding the notification bell in the description below to get notified when new videos come out. If you do have some questions or suggestions or anything like that, please do let me know as comments as well, because that will help me understand what your priorities are and what you would maybe like me to cover in future videos in relation to the Remarkable Paper Pro. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you in the next video. Bye!